In the heart of a city built for 100,000 people, where sunlight pierces the industrial mist to reveal streets laid out in a perfect geometric grid. Skyscrapers here pierce the clouds, their glass facades shimmering in the afternoon light. The parks are still meticulously pruned, but it is maintenance that no one needs, a mechanical ritual performed solely to maintain the illusion of asset valuation. There is no roar of car engines, no pulse of life. The entire city feels like a massive, multi-billion-dollar open-air museum, frozen in time. As you walk through these grand residential districts, the only sound is the low whistle of the wind cutting through rows of empty balconies. In architecture, this Aeolian effect usually goes unnoticed. Here, it is haunting. These are China's famous ghost cities. Once badges of honor for a rapid urbanization miracle, they have become massive concrete traps, locking away trillions in banking capital. Why would a rational nation spend trillions of dollars to raise these forests of steel in remote wildernesses? How did the logic of land-based finance become so dangerously self-reinforcing? This isn't just about an overheated housing market. It is a deeper, more dangerous paradox. When building becomes a tool for local governments to maintain credit ratings, economic logic collapses. Behind every brick and every rebar is a complex debt structure, acting like a parasite, eroding the very foundations of the financial system from the inside out. Today, we investigate this silent erosion. We're uncovering the structural failures hidden beneath a polished exterior and their long-term impact on the social contract. And we will answer the ultimate question: how much longer can this giant, built on debt and concrete, remain standing before these systemic risks finally erupt? To understand ghost cities, we must dissect the deep logic of this growth engine. For 30 years, growth relied heavily on capital formation rather than total factor productivity, or the quality of growth itself. In the political sphere, promotions were tied directly to GDP growth. This incentive structure forced decision-makers to prioritize massive, high-speed capital projects. Infrastructure became the ultimate Keynesian tool. A new bridge or district creates instant ledger wealth, regardless of whether the region possesses any actual industrial support. As long as the excavators are turning and rebar is being consumed, the fiscal data projects a facade of prosperity. This build-to-grow model turned urbanization into a numbers game. Local governments used LGFVs to inject land into financing platforms. This internal trade allowed land to act as collateral to secure trillions in liquidity from banks. This cycle seemed invincible during the demographic boom years, but ignored the core variable: real, effective housing demand and industrial capacity. When urban expansion outpaces population migration, new districts built for quotas are destined to become concrete forests aging in lonely silence across the wilderness. These places feature modern planning, schools, and hospitals, yet they lack the one vital element that keeps a city alive: moving, breathing people. To local decision-makers, these structures are first and foremost tools of financial leverage, and only secondarily living spaces. As long as they exist on the ledger, the logic holds. This over-leveraged growth model is now pushing the entire system's load to its physical and fiscal breaking point. This misallocation of resources leads to the infrastructure paradox. The weaker the local economy, the more it relies on inefficient infrastructure to mask its decline. In a healthy economy, construction is meant to meet demand. Here, the logic is completely inverted. Demand is manufactured solely to absorb industrial overcapacity. It is building for the sake of building. When counties' roads are wide enough, the government still borrows to build scenic boulevards because they need the fiscal expenditure. Why not stop? Because the moment you stop, the funding chain supporting growth snaps, and the paper prosperity vanishes instantly, triggering a credit collapse. So we see multi-million-dollar opera houses in remote counties with no core industries. They are aesthetically stunning, but financially disastrous. This premature construction hasn't boosted the economy. It has become a negative asset, devouring high-interest payments every single year. This waste of resources locks capital which should have funded innovation or social welfare into concrete blocks that generate zero revenue. It's like a person borrowing heavily to buy a supercar they can't even afford to fuel, just to appear wealthy. The car is beautiful, but it takes them nowhere. Ultimately, these empty miracles degrade quickly without a supporting population. This systemic logical failure is the beginning of the ghost city erosion. We must realize this paradox isn't just an economic error, it is a systemic over-leveraging of future wealth. If infrastructure is the body of a ghost city, then shadow banking, debt is the brittle skeleton keeping it upright, now cracking under the weight of systemic risk. Funding for these grand plans didn't come from taxes. It came from opaque off-balance sheet financing and local government financing vehicles, LGFVs. This lack of oversight paved the way for the eventual collapse. This financing model bypassed traditional budget oversight, allowing local governments to pursue near-infinite capital expansion without officially adding to their nominal debt. They poured trillions into projects with abysmal cash flow returns. This massive misallocation of capital is quietly altering the very DNA of the financial landscape. This debt was packaged as high-yield investment products, eventually locking in the savings of ordinary citizens. Every empty unit is tied back to a family's financial future. As long as property prices kept rising, the game continued. Everyone was gambling that they wouldn't be the last one holding the bag when the music stopped. But as the demographic tipping point arrives, the vast web of debt has started to tighten. Every node on the credit chain is now feeling unprecedented pressure. Banks have turned risk-averse, and liquidity has dried up. Once bustling construction sites have transformed into silent concrete ruins overnight. The dilemma now is they must borrow new debt just to service the old. The system has become zombified, struggling to keep its head above a rising mire of debt. We are witnessing the largest capital misallocation in human history, and the true cost is only just beginning to emerge. When the macroeconomic bubbles burst, the first to feel the sting are the ordinary families who leverage their entire life savings at the peak of the market. In China, these unfinished, abandoned projects are known as rotten tail buildings, not just financial losses, but unsightly scars across the urban landscape. Imagine that under the unique mechanism of the pre-sale system, you've paid your deposit and signed a 30-year mortgage, only to watch your future home turn into a pile of rusting rebar and weeds. Left with no choice, desperate buyers move into these raw shells, no electricity, no running water, and no elevators, beginning a surreal form of survival. They cook over open fires on balconies and haul water up dark stairwells. This is more than a financial ruin. It is a systemic loss of dignity and the right to modern living. This phenomenon is the inevitable result of the developer's high-leverage model failing. When pre-sale funds are illegally diverted, work stops. Legal battles are often endless and fruitless. Behind the corporate shell is a hollow balance sheet, leaving the law's protection feeling powerless. These victims are the most painful realization of the growth paradox. Their futures are literally locked inside these cold, unfinished concrete frames. When a home stops being a sanctuary and becomes a heavy cross of debt, the spirit of social stability begins to crack. This silent erosion starts on these broken balconies and spreads deep into the social psyche, fundamentally altering expectations for the future. Within this concrete desert, a more profound change is occurring, the silent disintegration of the social contract. This loss is unquantifiable, yet it's enough to alter a nation's destiny. For decades, people accepted a tacit agreement: work hard, follow the rules, and invest in property to guarantee steady wealth growth. This was the core faith of the middle class. This faith was the anchor of social stability. But now, it's snapping under the weight of failed projects. The brutality of a stock game is replacing the optimism of the boom era. When a lifetime of hard-earned savings vanishes and the promised future fails to arrive, public confidence in the system's efficiency begins to bleed out. This psychological structural collapse is far harder to repair than any physical building. It concerns the very foundation of social trust. The youth are beginning to question the meaning of striving. If the final destination is just a concrete box of debt, where is the drive to compete? This shift in mindset leads directly to shrinking consumption and extreme risk aversion, a mire known as a balance sheet recession. The erosion of trust is total, from bank credit to neighborly relations to the basic interaction between citizens and local governing institutions. Ghost cities are no longer just economic flaws. They have become monuments to social disillusionment, marking the end of an era of irrational expansion. If construction was meant to create hope, these empty streets are showing the world how that hope is drying up. When spotlights fade and developers retreat, these grand empty cities don't simply stand still. They enter a slow, expensive state of decay, one that effectively mortgages the future. This is a nightmare rarely discussed. Maintaining these uninhabited monoliths requires astronomical sums of public funding. Even without residents, elevators need routine servicing and facades need reinforcing. Without basic physical upkeep, the entire city would disintegrate within years. Strained local budgets, despite plummeting revenues, are forced to pay for this unneeded maintenance just to prop up the final illusion of asset value. Once power and water are cut, microcracks in the concrete expand rapidly with temperature shifts. This causes the value of these bank-collateralized assets to suffer an avalanche-like collapse. This fiscal burden acts like a black hole that can never be filled, devouring public funds meant for education and healthcare. It is a secondary form of erosion on social welfare. Over time, the physical depreciation of these ghost cities will outpace their financial write-downs. They are no longer stores of wealth, they are melting fiscal icebergs. This maintenance nightmare locks local governments in a vicious cycle, spending even more capital just to protect useless inventory. Eventually, this silent erosion will completely bankrupt local credit, acting as a massive debt bomb with an ever-shortening fuse. What we see are not just empty houses, but a trillion-dollar systemic error that is rotting faster every single year. Why can't the system stop? The answer lies in extreme path dependency, a failure that has escalated from economics to the very logic of governance. The entire growth model has built up massive inertia. Stopping now means admitting that the logic of the last 30 years has officially failed. Banks dare not stop lending. The moment they do, bad assets on the books surface instantly, triggering regional or even systemic financial instability. Local officials dare not stop building. Construction is the only credit bait left to maintain land value and attract the next round of capital. This is what we call Ponzi growth. You must constantly inject excessive resources just to keep the current debt system from collapsing instantly. Decision-makers are caught in a classic prisoner's dilemma. Everyone recognizes the bubble is unsustainable, yet no one wants to be the one to pop it. This institutional gridlock has caused many chances for a soft landing to slip away. Now at the limit, the system faces a violent adjustment. When hard growth quotas defeat market allocation, the failure becomes irreversible. This is a structural tragedy. Ghost cities are not the disease, they are merely the toxins excreted by this deep systemic illness settling across the nation. In the next part, we'll broaden our scope to see how this China-style infrastructure echoes across the global map. The impact of China-style construction has long since crossed borders, sending structural ripples through the global economic system. China's appetite for raw materials long fueled the global commodities boom, from Australian iron or to Latin American energy. As the world's largest concrete mixer begins to slow, every link in the global supply chain feels the biting chill of deflation. Many developing nations tried to copy this infrastructure model but lacked the financial depth, eventually falling into heavy debt traps. This misallocated model serves as a warning to global investors. Expansion based purely on scale faces violent diminishing returns. If Japan's bubble was local, China's current challenge is a stress test for the entire global monetary system. This tight linkage means the giant stumble affects everyone's wallet. We are entering a new era of stock games or even zero-sum games. Spilling financial risk is forcing nations to reevaluate their trade with China, shifting from reliance to de-risking over the long term. This isn't just China's structural collapse, it's a massive debt black swan in the globalization process that cannot be ignored. The lessons from the rubble are expensive. The global economy is paying the tuition for this irrational expansion model. At the end of our investigation, we must answer the core question. In a high-debt, low-growth era, where is the future? The answer is harsh. The old model of trading debt-fueled construction for growth is officially over. China faces a painful transition. The system must learn to move from expansion to optimizing existing assets. Ghost cities aren't stains to be erased. They are permanent monuments to an era of reckless speed. We see signals of hope lighting up. The state has drawn a guaranteed delivery red line to ensure homes are finished, while buyback programs are converting excess inventory into social housing. Deeper transformations are also underway, repurposing empty districts into senior living centers or hubs for digital nomads. These actions mark a shift from just building to precision operating, step by step repairing the ruins of despair into vibrant homes. But this requires a complete restructuring of vested interests. Reform without pain only delays the final explosion. True salvation lies in rebuilding the shattered social contract and returning resources to areas that truly improve the quality of economic growth. Only when humans become the goal of development, not the tool, can this massive system stop its pointless waste. The silence of ghost cities is a civilizational warning. Any prosperity that defies common sense must eventually return to its real value. Looking at these concrete forests, how do you think China should handle trillions in ghost city assets? Is it time for a painful transformation, or should they maintain the status quo? Join the discussion below and share your insights. If this video offered you a new perspective, please subscribe to Stratum Logic and give us a like to support our work. Your engagement drives us to keep uncovering the truths of our complex world. Thank you for deep thinking with us.